All right, KISS Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. We're just a bunch of KISS fans and we talk KISS. So come along for the ride. You've got nothing to lose. All right, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. I was just monologuing with the team there and nearly forgot that it was time to go live. So thank you for joining us live today. G. Chupko, AB, Stargazer, Kiss Vids, Ronnie Parker. And if you're joining us after the fact, thank you very much for your support. We do appreciate it. Before we get into today's show, first and foremost is condolences to the family and loved ones of Tim Rosner, who was, of course, Kiss's stage manager going back to, I believe it was the reunion tour when he came on board for that massive event, but he passed recently. So again, he was the voice, the announcer, I believe, for the reunion tour of that iconic band intro, a very important part of Kiss and many other bands' touring histories as well. He'd worked with a ton of different groups, like Styx, Foreigner, Aerosmith, Kiss, pretty much you name it over the past 30 years. Quite a important figure in the industry and respected as such. Our friends on the Ages of Rock podcast did a great interview with him back on episode 100 for them. So throw that into your Google machine, Ages of Rock podcast, episode 100 for a fun interview with him. So Ages of Pod Rockcast. There you go. New name for you. So, other news this week, Ace World feature was Give It To Me Anyway, the 84 demo version of that, which is a much more abrasive version than the one later recorded and not used for the Trouble Walking album, one of my personal favorites, but just another one of those songs that would have been a what if it had been on that album, because it at least was one that Ace did co-write versus stuff like Do Ya and some of the Richie songs that came in for that album. Mail call. I went shopping this week. I bought what I thought was going to be fun, an Sony ATV publishing CD of New York Groove by Ace Frehley. Boy, was I surprised when it was the Hello version, of course. So sometimes you roll the dice hoping something better than it was, and it isn't, but that's the collector's drama. Also picked up a copy of Metal Edge from January 1997. It's got a very, very extensive feature on Kiss in LA on the reunion tour in 96, of course. So let's see, I just one of the page, Kiss Rocks LA. Very cool feature. Also a separate feature on Bruce and Eric leaving the group. And at that time, Bruce was about ready to go touring with Lenita Erickson. Also picked up this oddity, which is Music Connection, West Coast, interview with Doc McGee in there. So still working on Magic, potentially. So we shall see. Anyone else got anything?
I received my T-shirt from Kiss Online. Man, do I love this Animalized
Very
T-shirt.
nice.
It's a real throwback, with the blue sleeves, three quarters of, what do we say?
3/4 length.
Yeah, 3/4 lengths on the arms, and on the back it says, if it's too loud, you're too old.
Don't forget, inside out. Wash it in cold water, inside out. There you go.
I was just gonna say I got an email saying my Kiss Army membership is about to expire.
Uh-oh.
So I'm going to have to rejoin the army or continue
it isn't like a permanent, like one time only, like
not for
Mark,
the paid
really,
one.
Mark, something permanent with Kiss.
It should be. I should be permanent.
Only someone like me is foolish to do that with my
based
Gemini
on
club. One time only.
Time of whatever.
Okay,
How much is?
he's almost up too.
Yeah, mine expires in 4 weeks. So to renew, I will get to keep my 24-hour pre-access to merchandise and tickets, exclusive Kiss Army VIP merchandise. Ooh, oh my, I'm getting more excited by the moment here. My keyboard's rising. The first to know, stay ahead with the VIP only newsletter and special partner deals with Audi and BMW, Mercedes, and a bunch of Qatari businesses that I can't afford. Yeah, so you get $10 off the $50,000 gold Strutter single if you joined.
Oh,
that's a
that's
joke.
deal.
That's a lame joke, by the way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say. Let's click on the link. How much is it now? I think it was $50 last time, which
50 or 60.
Still $50. So again, if you really want that early access for some of the stuff that now has clearly been exclusive to Kiss Online, then it's probably worth the money.
And you get your shirt and pin and the other thing, whatever.
Yeah, so you do get stuff for your $50, and they are putting effort into the site. I'm still quite happy with what they're doing. Sure, I like a little bit more cadence to things, but they do have to get people to do that work. So they're moving in the right direction. It's an improvement, shall we say?
Yeah.
All right, Mark, do you have an update on records? I saw you did a Project Gemini update the other day.
Yes, thank you for reminding me, Julian. So for everybody who's been waiting for their CDs in the US, it is now officially in the hands of my distributor guy. He messaged me that he has all the envelopes already, and we're starting to do all that stuff. And it'll be starting to be sent out probably over the weekend. He's probably packaging stuff up, and I'm guessing by Monday he'll post it, and you should get it very, very soon. As for the vinyl end of things, I got all the artwork. It's all done now. The booklet's done, everything. I got the poster. There's going to be a bonus poster, bonus sticker as well with the vinyl release. So there's going to be a lot of goodies with it this time. And some other stuff too that I'm not going to announce yet. But it's going to be a good vinyl pre-order this time. And that'll probably be in about a week or two.
Awesome. Glad to hear that. So exciting time. So today's topic, Where the Hell Were You?, is actually born from the message board. One of our posters, Alive 2 Side 4, has been posting these topics. And I've been so busy of late with work, with life, and other things that I haven't had a chance to really participate in those. So I thought it'd be a good idea just to rip off some of his work in posing these questions and just do one of our hey, thanks, Joseph Collins. Very much appreciated.
Cool.
And go through his questions as the panel. And for those of you who are in the audience as well, chime in with your thoughts on each one of these questions that Alive 2 Side 4 has posed. So let's jump into the first one. And his background for this topic is he'd like to start a weekly post question called Where the Hell Were You? And it will pertain to historical historical times in KISStory. So here's the first question. Daniel, we're going to start with you since Lonnie's not here. Where the hell were you in May of 1992 when the Revenge album dropped? And what was your very first impression of that album?
I vividly remember where I were, since I was actually at the golf course playing golf with one of my friends who later became an Olympic champion in biathlon. So this guy, he was awesome at golf. He played well. I couldn't hit the fairway. I was out in the rough, so things went sour pretty quickly. And I knew that Revenge was dropping in my what do you call it? Your post, your. I knew I was getting Revenge in my, in your what do you call it? Where you get your stuff, your posts, mailbox.
Mailbox.
Mailbox. Yeah. So sorry, I haven't talked English in a week, so I'm a bit rusty. So, but so I knew Revenge was dropping in my mailbox at the same time as I was at the golf course, and I just had to leave. I said to my friend, I can't finish this round. Things are not working out for me. I need to go back and check my mailbox. And so I went home and got the Revenge album out of the mailbox and played it start to finish, flicking through, the lyrics and stuff like that. And I wasn't overwhelmed at first. I had seen the video of Unholy and really enjoyed that one, and I couldn't really find any other song that I really enjoyed at the same level as Unholy at first. So I wasn't really overwhelmed. But I remember thinking that it sounded great. So that's what I recall from the day I got the album.
Ken, what about you going back to May 1992? My God, that's what, 34 years ago. Bloody hell.
Oh, Lord.
God. Yeah, May 1992, when it came out. Just before that, the month before, I saw the videos and everything, and then I saw them at the Stone on the Club tour, which was the opening, I think, show. Yeah, it was the first one with Eric Singer playing drums. So I saw that in San Francisco. Of course, I knew it was coming. I always, kept on top of those things. So when it came out, I remember, waiting for the day it comes out. I heard a couple extra songs on it when I went to that Stone show because they were playing the album on entry to that club show. So I heard some other songs I like. I was very, hyped for it because I heard these other songs that were totally rocking too, besides Unholy, of course. So I was waiting for it, and I think I went out at lunchtime during my work day. I was working in another city in about 45 minutes from here, and there was a Tower Records that they opened over there, not too far away from that. So I took off real quick and went out to that Tower Records, picked it up, came back, and I was in a warehouse at the time, and we used to play music. We had the big boom boxes and stuff, and it played CDs too. So I threw it in there. We were playing that during while working, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, that was the good times, and played that thing over and over.
Mark, for you.
Well, actually, I remember it very vividly, and I think I've mentioned it a couple of times on the podcast before, but I was introduced to Revenge, and I remember exactly the day that it happened because I was at my friend, who was the second guitar player in my band at the time, and we were upstairs in his room, and we were just jamming some riffs together we were working on, and he was playing something in the background, and then he turned it up a bit louder and goes, "Hey, by the way, listen to this." He goes, "You know what this is?" And I was listening and go, "Sounds familiar, like the vocals." And I go, "Who is this?" And he goes, "It's Kiss. It's the new Kiss album, Revenge." And I was like, "Wow!" Like I couldn't believe it because like it was so much heavier than what I was, used to hearing from before. Right? Had such a heavy production, and the guitar playing was so, cool at the wahs and stuff like that. That Bruce Kulick started using on some of the soloing and stuff. So I remember it vividly. It was the day that came out because he picked it up that same morning. He picked it up, and that evening I came by to work on some stuff with him. So the next day I went and got it at my local store here, just not too far from where I live. But it was a huge impact on me the moment I heard that album. So it was the next day that it was released was when I first got it. And I heard it the first time the day of. So thanks to my friend Ted, who had it at the time. And yeah, it was like I said before, it was the thing that got me back into Kiss heavily, like collecting wise, and starting to, look into going to conventions and stuff like that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, going back to May 1992. Oh, I was on where the hell was I? I was about to move back to Scotland, and we had a place in Clydebank up on Roman Hill Road, and I was still in Scranton, living in a shithole, basically student accommodation, all ex-student, dropout student accommodation, and we had a building in a very crappy off street, so it was like behind other houses, just a complete dump. There's one on one side that the Stoners lived in, and on the other side I moved in with a guy with a guitar and a ferret. So it comes out about that time. The guys who were the Stoners were in a band called Black Moon, and they're actually a really good band. They were also Grateful Dead fans.
Oh, okay.
but they
That
were playing
explains a lot.
stoner rock. No, they're doing stoner rock. And it was very, very cool stuff. So the stuff we're kind of listening to was, well, there was that stuff. There was Nirvana, obviously, was huge at that point. So that really played a lot of it. I was listening to Innuendo, Queen, a lot. I was a little bit out of rotation with Kiss. I mean, I'd picked up the originals pretty recently at that point, but it wasn't Kiss every day, 24/7. So I heard the album. I think I saw Unholy, and I wasn't impressed by it because it didn't seem authentic. And I still have issues with how inauthentic that album is. As great as it sounds, as much of an improvement that it was over Hot in the Shade, my opinions never wavered on that. I still love listening to Rise to It, even with the guitar intro being a complete ripoff of Cinderella, Long Cold Winter, falling apart at the seams. Unholy and a lot of that album, you can tell they did the Q&A with fans of, what do you want? I want to be 14 again. Okay, well, we'll write down to that level. So you get the Spits, you get the Hearts of Chrome, you get some spectacularly stunning songs on that album, including Every Time I Look at You and Heart of Chrome are the two that jump out at me right now. Paralyzed as well, for that matter, which I still dig. So it wasn't really part of my life. And to this day, it falls down near the bottom of the barrel just because it wasn't a great time in life. Post Penn State, going back, basically fleeing America, going back to Scotland. And then life changed up with going to university. So it's more tied in with a pretty negative period. So
you mentioned the production of that, but I was just thinking, imagine some of the Hot in the Shade songs with that type of production, how much better that would have been if it had, really good, nice production. I think it would have helped that album quite a bit, even though there's some, too many songs and some stinkers, but I think it really would have helped. Anyway.
The production would be a massive difference if they'd gone somewhere halfway between Crazy Nights and that Sonic Signature. That's a very kind of dry sounding album, as is Revenge, for that matter. There are a lot of similarities stylistically in the production to my ears. Again, opinions are going to vary on that. And people make the excuse with Hot in the Shade that it's only demos. It's not just demos. I've heard the demos. They're completely different than what is on that released album. But I agree with you.
I think that's a great point from Ken. I think songs like King of Hearts and a few others could have been really cool with a Revenge production. A song like King of Hearts, I mean, Heart of Chrome sounds great, but if you didn't have the production, if it was the same production as on Hot in the Shade, I would probably rank King of Hearts higher because I think it's a cooler song.
Right.
But I don't go back and listen to King of Hearts, and that's because it sounds like crap.
Well, the thing is too that it's not so much that they were demos. The place that they went to, the Fortress, I believe it was called, was more or less equivalent to like a really good demo studio, like where people would go and do demos. Whereas as if they went to if they would have went to like Record One or the Record Plant or something like that, or One-on-One, they would have had, I think, a better overall sound because that studio was just better equipped for production stuff. Whereas maybe the Fortress was cheaper. That was a big thing for Gene back then, watching every penny. I remember reading in the book that he said he was keeping an eye on every kind of cost, how much, reel-to-reel tape cost, how much they were paying for it, and this and that. So there was a lot of that going on. And so hence they went to a studio that was probably a little bit more affordable as well. But when you do that, you don't have some of the same gear and some of the same good rooms that you would in a bigger studio.
Yeah, necessity must. They weren't in a great shape financially. They'd fired Glickman Marx in '88. Rodrigo, so Brazil had the vinyl. I know that I bought it on cassette just because it was cheap, and I didn't have. I did have a CD player, but it was cheaper to get the cassette. And when I went back to Britain, I got the CD, and that made a difference. For Hot in the Shade, I bought the vinyl in Singapore, which didn't sound very good with that much crap jammed onto a single platter. So I got the cassette and the CD later, and that improved the listening experience on that somewhat. What did you buy it on, Mark, when you first got it?
I got it on cassette. That was the first thing I got it on, mainly because I had my car. I had a pretty, half decent stereo in my car, and so I would always buy it on that. I did have a CD player at that time, but I had very little CDs at the time because it was early days for that. Still, I thought, because CDs are really expensive back in the day. I remember I got my mom bought me for my birthday Poison's Flesh and Blood on CD, and I remember her telling me that it was like expensive. It was like way up to like $30 some odd. I was like, wow. Like because those were the early times. But then the prices went down, and I started going crazy with buying CDs then.
So you jam out to Unskinny Bob. Okay.
Oh yeah, it was all day long.
Yeah, you just don't strike me as a Poison fan. That's why I gave you.
I really wasn't, but
face.
I did go to see.
Present.
I did go to see Poison when it was when Slaughter and Poison toured together. I'll tell you something. I've never been to a concert that had so many hot chicks in it in one concert. It was unbelievable. It was like 70-30. 70%, 30% women there. It was unbelievable.
Fair enough. Ken, what did you buy it on?
Which one?
Revenge.
Oh, Revenge. Yeah, CD. Initially, because I was kind of switching over to that at that time. I stopped buying the vinyl and was doing CD.
Ooh, good one from Stargazer.
Yes.
Dehumanizer. No one can say enough good things about that freaking album. Oh my
awesome.
God.
I like it.
Daniel, what version did you buy? Cassette? K7?
Is it my turn?
Yes.
Well, which version of the album did you buy?
I didn't get there was a problem with the sound, but I guess it's my turn. So well, of course I got it on CD. CD was the thing back then in '92. We all bought CDs back then, me and my crew, so to speak. However, I remember one of my friends who wasn't a Kiss fan, he got the album on vinyl. So there was vinyl in Scandinavia and Sweden. And he wasn't a fan, but he still bought Revenge. So there was a buzz here in Sweden. So it was very unfortunate that they didn't continue the tour. They toured the UK, but they didn't get a chance to tour Scandinavia and the rest of Europe. I think they would have done great here in Scandinavia because there was a buzz about the record. It got great reviews in the newspapers. The music magazines covered the album. Paul and Gene were over here and did sort of a promotion tour. So I guess they thought they were going to tour Scandinavia, but something happened and people, they didn't dare to take the chance on booking Kiss. I guess maybe the last time they were here on the Crazy Nights tour, it didn't work out or something. So unfortunately, they never came here. But the album was really well received over here, and non-Kiss fans bought it, and suddenly it was like it wasn't. I mean, if you were a Kiss fan, you weren't teased like you were back in the late 80s. People respected. It was like they were respected veterans, sort of. You got the Kiss album. Well, they're pretty cool these days. So
Scandinavia is a pretty loyal fan base though for Kiss. I would say, wouldn't you?
For sure.
Consistently as well.
Yeah. So it made kind of a splash over here, and it entered the charts. I think it, and I remember God Gave Rock and Roll to You was a semi-hit over here. And of course, in the UK, it went to number 4. So there was a buzz, and they play that God Gave Rock and Roll video on MTV Europe all the time. And people seem to enjoy the album. So it was very unfortunate they didn't tour Scandinavia, because I think that could have even made them more popular and made people, talking Kiss and selling more albums. So, but it wasn't to be. And but I like the album. especially the sonics on the album. I think it's a great sounding Kiss album.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. They
Top
didn't.
10 in Sweden and went to number 4 in Norway.
They didn't press in the U.S. that on vinyl here initially when it came out. Right when it came out.
Yeah, it came out on H&H,
It was
great
in Europe.
vinyl.
It came out like a little bit later, a year or two later. They had it on blue marble and gray marble vinyl. Right.
I got one of those.
I know Mark's got one that I sent him. So
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ken.
It was on vinyl in the UK when I went back, but I didn't buy it. I mean, couldn't be bothered at that point. Didn't have a record player, so there was no purpose. Last thing on this part of the topic was, I think the definitive version of Revenge is the Argentine cassette with the extended mixes. A couple of songs, very minor differences. Extended mumble in Paralyzed, additional count-ins on a couple of things, but just a slightly different mix for the album. So well worth getting. I listen. That's my listening copy these days, as an audio rip of one of those cassettes. So let's move into Where the Hell Were You number 2. Oh God, we're staying in the 90s for this one. Daniel, where the hell were you in September 1998 when Psycho Circus dropped?
Well, I had just been attending 2 concerts on the reunion tour in '97. A bit underwhelmed at those concerts by the drumming because growing up with Eric Carr and Eric Singer, I remember being a bit disappointed attending those shows, mainly because the tempo was slower, the drumming was not at the same level as I was enjoying on the Revenge album and on the Revenge tour. That I had all those videos from Detroit '90 and Detroit '92, and was looking forward to that. So I wasn't. I was sort of on the downslide in my Kiss fandom. My band with Bruce and Eric Carr and Eric Singer was dead, and I didn't really. Of course, I enjoyed the fact that they were so popular here in Scandinavia. People were talking Kiss again, and that's always fun when your favorite band or your favorite team is appreciated by other people. That was great, but I couldn't really get into that version of the band because I think it was subpar compared to my version of the band with Kulik and the singer. So when it was dropped, I remember that video of Psycho Circus was played a lot over here in Sweden, and the album sold well. I think it's the first album that went to number 1 in Sweden, Psycho Circus from Kiss.
Wow.
So people got into it. But for me, I enjoyed the single, but other than that, I thought it was a mishmash of songs. It kind of reminded me of Hot in the Shade. There was no direction. It didn't feel like a true Kiss album. And later on, I understood that they had a lot of other people playing on the songs. There's not a lot of Ace and Peter there. So I wasn't I wasn't into that album at all, and I was starting to lose my interest in Kiss sort of because it was the tour following that was like the reunion tour but worse. It was nothing new. You had the Psycho Circus single was kind of cool, but other than that, it felt like they were winding down, I think.
Yeah. It went to number 1 in Sweden and Australia. Ken, Psycho Circus, where were you in September 1998?
I don't know, somewhere in the area.
It's a metaphysical question.
I know exactly where it was. Yeah, I was aware of it. I think I had a download of it before it actually came out, from what I remember, and hearing some of it, and I was enjoying it. I wasn't aware of the Ace and Peter missing on most of it, but I probably should have recognized that at the beginning. But yeah, I got it right away. I know I must have bought it the first day it came out with the lenticular CD, that they had at the time. Yeah, I mean, I was happy that I thought, oh, finally, the original guys are getting, together to put an album out. That's what I was hoping for, actually, when they announced the reunion tour. But we got that other abomination, that live, not live kind of thing. Anyway, so yeah, I got it, and I enjoyed it. There's unfortunately like Daniel said, it was kind of didn't flow right. It was disjointed. The only thing that the bookends of it, kind of think the best parts of it are like the, Psycho Circus and Journey of 1,000 Years. Those fit that whole thing, but the stuff in the middle kind of doesn't go with the rest. Maybe a couple songs, but anyway, it's okay album. I was kind of enjoying it, certain songs, and then I wasn't enjoying other songs. So
September 98, I had moved to San Francisco by then, and I'd moved into an apartment in the city. So I was working I was working in a hospital, IT, and remember listening to Psycho Circus, the song, when it leaked on, I think, Roth's Rendezvous.
That was it. Yeah,
I listened and
remember that.
And it was, I think it was the Rat on the East Coast that played the song as well. I can't remember, WRAT. I did a review of the album, and I said, "This is, great Peter Criss drumming, Ace Frehley,
Yes,
classic
exactly.
For the nuance wasn't there for me. I was kind of excited by the material, and it's no longer the case. Mark.
Actually, it's funny, dude. This is one of the moments in this sort of time frame that I kind of vividly remember, because I was one of these guys who liked keeping notes on things. And I have like all these little journals and booklets from all over my house of like time periods throughout my life. And 98 was kind of a big year for me, because at that time I had started a band with with my friend who came back from college, Jerry, on drums. And he's a fantastic drummer. He's just brilliant drummer. And I was glad if we made a band. It was called Reckon with One. I think some of you guys might have even had a CD I gave you guys, or somebody, I know a few people have got it from me. And in 98, we were just getting ready to go into the studio to do our debut record. And I remember this time period because that's when Psycho Circus came out. Around that time, we were starting to get ready for it. So we were all excited because, we had gone and seen the reunion show, me and Jerry and those guys, and we had a great time at it. And a new album was something that we weren't really expecting at the time to come out. And then we remembered that I remember in Toronto there was like a magazine there called, I don't remember what it was called, but it was a magazine locally that we had here that had an ad showing that Kiss was going to have that album come out. We're like, wow, a new Kiss record, and we went and got it. And we listened to it and stuff. And I remember initially when we started listening to it, at first I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, in a very upbeat mood. I was, getting ready to go in, like I said, to go and record. And I never forget it because I wrote this in my book there one time. I should pull it out one time and find it again. Where my friend Jerry said, he goes, the drumming is pretty interesting on this record. He goes, it sounds like Peter came up with a couple of new drum fills that I've never heard him do before. Like he picked up on it right away, because when he saw him live, he thought that Peter was pretty good live. He called him solid. Like he goes, Peter's never been a flashy drummer like a Neil or something like that, right? But he goes, he thought he was good. But he goes, some of these drum fills, it's like, and he just put it down to that maybe he thought he was learning some new drum fills. He thought of some new things and he put it on there. Later, did we realize later on that, he wasn't even on the record. So it was interesting how my friend kind of picked up on that immediately. But he's also he's been a long time drummer, so he can kind of sense these kind of little changes. Whereas, when you start analyzing the guitar playing a little bit more in detail, you can do the same as well. But initially I didn't, because I was so into, the fact that there was a new album, and I was so excited about doing our own record. But 98 was a very good period for me for that time. So I'll always remember Psycho Circus for that end of it. Did I think it was the greatest record? No, I didn't like songs like We Are One. I thought it was a little too kumbaya. And, and some of the other songs were a little, what's that song where they all sing together, all four
You
of them?
wanted the
You
best.
Yeah,
wanted the
that one-
best. You got
That
the
one I
best.
thought was so trying so hard to be another rock
Yeah.
and roll night kind of thing. I was like, give me a
Forced.
break. Like it was, really forced. But I didn't mind. The title track was great, and some of the other songs like the Journey of 1,000 Years was strong, I thought. And so it was like a mixed bag, but it sounded good. Bruce Fairbairn was a producer I thought was really good. I thought that sonically it didn't sound bad at all. It's just I thought the songs were very much in need of help.
It was so rough for Bruce. He died a few years later. It was straight
After
on-
working with the
on-
Yes,
Yeah.
after he did the ladder with Yes, that's when he
Okay.
died.
It
But
killed
I
him.
think very unfortunate that they didn't understand the power of the covers in the 70s, like Destroyer, Love Gun, and that sort of stuff. It boggles the mind, the covers that they, Psycho Circus, Monster, Sonic Boom, such failures, when we all know what every Kiss fan wants. It's the Ken Kelly stuff, paintings like that. So I remember being very underwhelmed by the cover of Psycho Circus.
But I can understand Paul being one of these guys who probably thought to himself, we can't keep repeating ourselves. We have to move forward and do something different. We're repeating
Changed his
ourselves.
mind on that for Sonic Boom, though, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Ken,
I think you got me already.
did
Yeah.
I can't keep track of this stuff.
That was the last one.
You know what? Psycho Circus is really tough. I think it's toughest in hindsight. I never liked the tie-in commercially with the Psycho Circus theme from the beginning. That just wasn't my thing. I know some people love the dolls, and more power to you. Some of you love the comic books as well. I don't care about that stuff. It's like, here's a marketing idea in search of an album, and then there's the politics inside the album after you've had the most successful tour of 1996 and a strong tour in 1997, but decreasing fortunes on that Lost Cities run. So you can see why there would be ego. You'd see why there would be a desire for justice or a more participatory role, more equal. But it was never the honest Kiss album when you look back at the 70s. It never could be, in a sense. But I think that hurt the most in hindsight, and why I'm so burned by that album after the fact, because I liked it musically enough to really write a positive review about it. But it was just the filthiness of the deceit.
Yeah.
And trying to make it appear that it was more that I really react to more, and that sullies it in so many ways, especially when you've seen songs that Ace presented for this album turn up on his releases. You see songs that Peter Criss presented now appear on his releases. And
Julian, what were some of those songs then? Do you have some titles?
You make it hard for me. The
That's a good
song you
one.
did with Sebastian.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, became what was it? Was that Pain in the Neck or Fox and Free? I lose track which one it became.
Fox and Free.
You have Justice Together for Peter. There were songs that, in my view, but again, there's the politics, there's the challenges. Again, there was always the business side interfering with our perception of the fan perception of the Brady Bunch.
Fox and Free would have been a great Ace tune on that album. God damn.
Yeah, and Into the Void is fine. Into the Void to me is the standout from that. So I do have because it is the only legitimate song on that album. You get to hear some other stuff on Gene Simmons' Vaults that could have been. In Your Face is pretty crap, but it's still better than some of the stuff on that album. Let's move on to the next. So we can keep on moving. All right, Where the Hell Were You, number 3. This one's going to be for old timers. So I think that only one of us is going to be able to answer this, Ken. Where the hell were you in May of 1979 when Dynasty dropped?
Oh yeah, I was ready for Dynasty. I think I do remember. I did buy the single. I think you guys know this story, but I did buy the single, and when I Was Made for Loving You came out, and I ended up playing the B side of it more than the A side because I loved Hard Times so much, and then the one day came. I think I was calling the record store because I didn't know that was the only way you could really find out. Sometimes there was something that told you maybe in a magazine or somewhere else, but I didn't know the date, but I knew it was coming soon. So I called them and said, hey, when's, Dynasty coming out? And they would, give me a date, and they said, okay. So we went there after school. I think it must have been a Tuesday. Drove there and picked up the album right away. And it was, we looked for it right away, and it wasn't in the bins there, where all the albums, like the Kiss section. I'm looking through it, there's other stuff. Other albums, where is it? And then we look down on the floor, and there's boxes of albums yet to be placed in the bins, record bins, and on the shelves. And sure enough, Dynasty was there. You can see on the spine of the which albums, and we grabbed them, pulled them out, and we had them there. And then my friend, on purpose, because he knows I was the biggest Kiss fan there's like three of us, and he purposely he got in line in front of me. He says, I got this album before you did, kind of thing. It's like, geez, okay. But that was a cool day. That was was it the first album I got on the initial release date? Probably. I think it was for Kiss. After that, it was like I got every album on release dates going forward pretty much after that. So yeah, we took it home, and we threw it on, and I played side 2 first, as we all know, with Charisma as playing first as the first song, and the rest is KISStory, I guess. So yeah, it was great. I was happy. It was a more poppy kind of sounding record, rock pop, but it was still a very good record, and I still enjoy it to today.
Yeah, May 1979. I'd been in the United States for 6 months. By that time, I had experienced that talent show, which I've referenced previously. The kids dressed up in their mom's leotards with tinfoil, miming to do some Black Diamond. So I didn't know anything about Dynasty. I didn't buy it. I wasn't a Kiss fan. I was listening to John Lennon and the Beatles exclusively if I had any music in my life. But I was more likely to be playing with Action Man, toy soldiers.
Ooh, Action Man.
Yeah, that was what I was doing, or riding my bicycle. So Kiss wasn't a part of my life. It's funny, that's a talent show that I often reference. I was talking to my sister recently about it. She's a little bit older than me, and she named all the people that were playing in that mime group from 1979. She remembered all of those details, and that was absolutely hilarious. She remembered the songs. So that confirms to me that, do some Black Diamond, which I think is absolutely hilarious. Mark, you?
Well, the funny thing is, of course, I would have been 6 years old when this came out at the time. So obviously I would have been probably at home with my apartment. But one thing I do remember, because I was talking to my sister Jane not too long ago about this, and we were talking about Kiss stuff because I was going through some of my records, and she saw I had Dynasty out, and she was talking about it, and she remembered when she bought it on the day it came out. And she said that day when she went to buy it, there was, quite a few people at the store that went to buy it here in Brampton, which is just outside Toronto. And she bought that album, and she also bought AC/DC's If You Want Blood, You Got It the same time on that day. And then she was also very excited because she had heard word, or maybe saw in a magazine, that Highway to Hell was going to be released not long after, right? I think it was in July that came out, Highway to Hell. So she was a big AC/DC and Kiss fan, right? So I do remember we were talking about that not too long ago, that she said that she bought it, and my parents weren't too impressed with the If You Want Blood album cover with the, my parents are really strict Eastern European kind of thing. So, they saw it and they're like, what the hell is this kind of thing? But yeah, so they were they were not impressed. But Jane always used to play the music there, so I was inundated with this stuff at a very early age, and hence probably why I love this music so much as I do. So that I don't remember vividly hearing it at that age, right? But I do know that, you know, she used to take me around because we lived in an apartment building. So she used to take me to her friends up. We were on the 5th floor, and the 6th floor she had a good friend, and the 4th floor she had a couple of friends, and those were the guys that had the jean jackets with the leather jacket underneath and with the back patches on their jean jackets. And in their room they had like all the solo album covers on their wall, and they had a huge poster of Kiss. So there was a lot of Kiss listening in our apartment building, and a lot of AC/DC too was going on at that time. So our apartment building was pretty rock and rolling. So that was one good thing too, you know, when you're a young guy, you know. So yeah, it was those things I remember. I remember going to that one guy's apartment and seeing all those posters, and they had a huge poster of the Kiss Alive 2 poster, and he's Gene with the blood, and I was always like, wow, what the hell is that? Like, it kind of freaked me out the first couple of times when I saw it. But those things are sort of etched in my memory more than the certain albums at the time. But then I was young, as the memories are more vivid as you get older, right?
Daniel.
I was way too young. I was just a toddler. I remember the first album I got that really rocked my world was Stay Hungry, Twisted Sister.
Oh, okay.
I thought it would have been Sesame Street or something.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that was
Rubber Ducky.
I think I listened to the Jungle Book quite a few times on LP.
Oh, the Jungle Book.
Yeah,
I had that when I was a kid.
I like that one. But
remember
the
that.
first rock album that really rocked my world was Stay Hungry. And it's very unfortunate that they had to cancel their tour through Europe this summer because of health issues with Dee Snider. And that just tells you that you're getting old yourself. I mean, when your favorite bands can't even tour anymore. So I think that's very unfortunate. Dynasty, I remember, discovering it later on, but I was into Asylum, Animalize. So my first thoughts of Dynasty wasn't that great. I thought it sounded too much pop. I was into a bit more metal at the time, but as the years has gone by, I can enjoy it. There is quite a few cool songs on the album.
Actually, Kiss Vids mentions the Hobbit box set. I remember listening to the Railway Children cassette. We had the cassette set of those, as well as the John Lennon stuff, and also Treasure Island audiobooks. They're big, way before any of this stuff. All right, let's I don't want to go over an hour today because I got stuff to do. So let's jump into the other thing that has happened this week, which is, of course, Gene has had another foot in mouth meltdown. They call it a meltdown. I don't think that's exactly fair. He just pontificated. He didn't get all angry and start drooling and doing the spittle and all this. But on the Legends and Leaders podcast, he added or said, "I don't come from the ghetto. I said in print many times, hip-hop does not belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, nor does opera, symphony orchestras. It's called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame." Shame on me for doing rabbit ears. We're going to go around everyone's opinions on this. Is Gene right? Because I look back and something I've been listening to a lot of NWA lately, and checking out the Ice Cube induction speech into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, where he actually addressed people who were saying that certain genres of music don't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I agreed with him, shockingly. I was like, yeah, there's a definite rock and roll attitude in that music, the rebelliousness. The rock and roll itself was appropriated from the blues and developed with a whole bunch of different elements coming in from primarily black acts during the 40s and 50s and earlier. Robert Johnson. You don't have Led Zeppelin without Robert Johnson. You don't have Kiss without Led Zeppelin. So to try and just shoehorn it all into one thing, I think the branding is the problem, in that calling it the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame
Exactly.
Yeah.
really makes everyone react and put it into their very narrow view of what rock and roll means. And Gene, of course, has these wonderful thoughts. He's a smart guy.
Yeah.
But he doesn't always express himself in a thoughtful manner like Paul Stanley does.
No.
Instead, he doesn't pause to think before his lips start flapping. So I'm like, Chuck D came out and said very much the same thing as well in response to Gene. It has gotten a bit weird for what is, so broadly defined as Rock and Roll Hall of Fame now has Madonna, Dolly Parton,
Sure,
NWA, some of the R&B. So it really has broadened to the point where I think they need to just change the frickin' name on it to be done with it. But I also want to take Gene to task in his anti-semantic pontifications. Gene, you never wanted to be in the Hall of Fame when you weren't getting nominated or getting in. But now that you're a member of these exclusive clubs, you want to be a gatekeeper to what is deemed worthy. I mean, let's go back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2014 of what Kiss probably should have done, which is
like
what you said in 1999 when you didn't get in. We don't need to be a member of your stinking club. We've got all the validation that we need from our fans. Ken.
No, I'm just saying, like when Steve Miller accepted his, he had a good speech on that one. He ripped them pretty good. So yeah, has Mozart been inducted? I don't know. It probably should before anybody else. And Beethoven and all these guys, Chopin.
Yeah,
the list goes on. But he's been talking about that forever. I know he has said it many years ago. What's funny is Gene and Paul both were bad mouthing the Hall of Fame when they weren't getting inducted year after year. And then after they finally got it, then they were all, of course, happy about it. But I agree that if it's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it should be rock and roll. But some people have a hard time deciding, what is rock and roll exactly? Some people say it's not just about the music; it's about the attitude and other stuff. So I don't know. I do agree, though. It should have never been called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It should be called whatever, World Music Hall of Fame. I don't know. But it's just kind of ridiculous at this point, even from the beginning. And then the people that started it, they just voted their favorites artist in. What was it, Jan Wenner? That guy who's no longer, I think, part of it. Yeah, and he hated Kiss, so there's no way they were going to get in on the first time. And so, the whole thing, like I said, I think in the thread, it was a sham from the beginning. It just didn't make sense. But whatever. So eventually, your favorite artist will get in there. I have some favorite artists that aren't still not in there that should be in there before some of these other artists who maybe did one album 15 years ago or whatever it was. I don't know how long ago maybe it's 25-year period. I don't know what the cutoff is for when you can finally get in. Forget, but it just doesn't make sense. There's some artists that so deserve to be in there and they're not in there. I just don't get it. Anyway, that's why it's a sham.
Mark, it's a sham. It's a swindle.
And yes, it is. I mean, that's always been my problem with it from the beginning, is that rock and roll is supposed to be rock and roll. and now it's gotten to the point where everybody and every single act and genre are getting into it. I mean, as soon as they started doing that, they should have immediately knocked off the rock and roll part out of it and just called it the Music Hall of Fame, and that's it. It would have been, nobody would have had anything to complain about, because it'll be open to all genres, all acts, and stuff like that, and there wouldn't be any issue, you know. But I mean, on one hand, if you're going to do a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think that, and if you want to keep it that way, then why not make a rap Hall of Fame? Why not make a country music Hall of Fame? I mean, isn't there one in Nashville anywhere? It's like a country music Hall of Fame. I thought that there was.
I think there is, or something.
Like, so why not
put Kiss in there for Heart Like Woman with Garth Brooks?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're gonna do a country music one, I mean, if you want to celebrate that genre of music, then by all means go. And I have no problem with that. You know, it's just when you start intermingling what isn't rock and roll in it, then that's what I think is sort of odd. I mean, you know,
Mark's a gatekeeper for what rock and roll is.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what rock and roll is and what really isn't. I mean, come on, you know, 2 turntables and a microphone is not rock and roll. I'll stand on that hill and die on it.
They're using rock and roll riffs. Look at
it doesn't matter. They didn't create it. They didn't create it.
They're repurposing it, which is just
it doesn't matter. You didn't play it. Riffs. You didn't play it. That's not the same thing.
Where would Zeppelin be without Willie Dixon?
Yeah, but they're playing
they stole from the blues guys.
They're playing it. That's it. You know,
so
that's
the guy with the scratching.
No, that's playing it. Give me a break. Anyways, I just think though that it's just better to just keep a music Hall of Fame. It would make it a lot simpler. Then everybody can celebrate it, and there you go. Bingo, bango, Bob's your uncle, right? So I mean, I think that's the best way to approach it. And Gene, are you really surprised that he, you know, did something like this? I mean, we're so used to him by this point doing it. I almost think he's just doing it now just so that he can keep himself and Kiss in the media.
In the news.
Yeah.
People are talking about me. There's a disturbance in the forest. Go on a podcast to say something asinine, like I do every week. Daniel.
Well, I think you guys had a lot of great points. I agree with your sentiments, but I just think that having a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is such a silly idea. I think rock and roll is the furthest thing away from, you know, like the Oscars or the Hall of Fame stuff. You don't need it. I hate seeing like Paul and Gene in suits and ties accepting awards. That's not what rock and roll is about for me. It's about rebellion. It's about going against the grain, not being a part of this suit and tie type of thinking. So I think that whole idea, having the Rock and Roll of Fame over there in America, is a silly fucking loser idea that shouldn't even exist. I think it's so silly, even though it's good to, you know, appreciate, you know, show that you guys did a great thing. I don't need no sort of Hall of Fame, Oscars, awards type of thing for my rock and roll. I think it's a bad idea from the get-go. And of course, it's just about getting attention, getting views, getting people to look at your award show. So of course they will add artists that will create a buzz. So they don't care if it's rock and roll, rap, or country or anything. They just let anyone into that club. And I think it's there's no rock and roll at all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
It's all about the money. That's all it is.
Yeah, I hate it.
It's strictly about the Rock and Roll Hall selling something, selling a product. It's very, I don't want to say that actually. I was going to say it's a very American thing to give everyone a participation medal, which is what it almost is with their baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown. In the past week, the NFL one has, you know, not put in Belichick and Robert Kraft because of politics, even though they're the most successful, you know, owner and all that crap. All it is about selling tickets to people, selling licensing to people to watch a show, a half-assed one in many cases, you know. So it is ultimately a participation trophy in a very real sense. The Sex Pistols' response to it is you could shove it, you know, You know, Johnny Rotten's rejection letter was a thing of legend, but the Pistols are still in there. No matter whether you accept or not, you're still going in because you've been so judged by the ownership. So it's only about money. It's not about music in many cases. If the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and fact check me if I'm wrong, for God's sakes. I mean, what are they doing outreach? Are they putting instruments in schools, using that money to fund music programs that are being slashed left, right, and center? Are the artists who get in doing anything to give back to the communities from which they come with artistic expression? Again, in American schools, teachers are buying pencils for kids because the budgets have been slashed so much that music programs are the first things to go. And yeah, this does get into it's skirting close into politics, but it's happened under multiple administrations because of budget challenges affecting. So I see it as a non-partisan issue to say that what are these people doing for music projects? Gene does a lot of philanthropy, so I'll give him credit for at least putting his money where his mouth is. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, unless it's putting a large percentage of its budget towards fostering music, wherever music arises, because you don't know if it's going to go, if those kids picking up an instrument are going to go hard rock, they're going to go opera, they're going to go classical, they're going to go rap and buy a turntable to annoy Mark.
I'd support that. I'd support that. I mean, honestly, that's one thing I think, Julian, you hit the nail right on the head, that they should be, as this administration that they're doing there, or the people that are running the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, should be putting money back into the music community, and it starts with our kids. You know, I put it, and I've said that earlier before. In my will, I said I wanted to put my music stuff, either sell it or give it to local schools. And if you sell my stuff, put the money towards getting new guitars for their guitar classes. Put something in there. I think that I'd love to pay back music in that way, that when I'm gone, to put money that you can sell my record collection or my music stuff, whatever, and put it into some of my local schools here, because they're getting hit too with their music programs and stuff. You know, buy new brass instruments for their music program. And there's a guitar. I went to guitar. I had a guitar class at high school, and I'll never forget it. It was one of my favorite classes that I went to. Buy them some new classical guitars there for the students, and it's important. And you know, that's the thing too. In other schools, you know, if let's say there's a big demographic of people that love rap music, buy turntables for the classrooms to teach them how to do it if they want to do it with the little mixers and stuff like that. Or if there's people that want to learn country music, buy some banjos or some other stuff, buy some whatever, buy stuff to help them learn that genre more if they want to do it. You know, I'm in full 100% support of that, whether it's Latin music, rap music, country music, metal, rock and roll, whatever, opera. Put the money back in to the next generation to learn this stuff, so that we can have, you know, legendary bands. Because right now, I can't think of too many great bands that will be heralded the same way as Zeppelin and all these other bands are being heralded right now. Let's give them a good start by letting them learn early on, you know, instruments and stuff like that, and give them the tools to do it.
Yeah. You don't need no instruments. Just prompting AI.
Yeah, don't start with that crap.
No.
AI.
Oh, AI.
AI is a bunch of
That's
crap.
the future of music.
It is not. Pop that fucking bubble right about now, so those assholes go broke. God. I don't care what happens, because it's all a scam. You know, Kiss, it was a great point actually in the chat by McMurphy. You know, look at Kiss's two of their biggest hits, Beth, orchestral ballad. That ain't rock and roll. I Was Made for Loving You, disco. There's 3 Kiss related rap songs. You know, Read My Body, All Hell's Breaking Loose, with its kind of spoken rappy thing. And then I think they brought in a rapper in '92 that wasn't used on one of the songs. So they
mumble section of Spit, I think.
Yeah. Carnival of Souls, again, going into the grunge. So Kiss has been all over genre hopping whenever it was convenient for them. Mistake was country infused or inspired, shall we say, with its Slide. Hard Luck Woman, again, jumping outside the box. The whole part about rock and roll is not to be put in a box. It's to think outside the box, to stretch the boundaries, to rebel against what the rules are. And many of the people who've done that, and that's what Gene forgets. in a way. But again, don't ever. The value of being recognized is overrated. It's better to be respected by the people who matter the most, and that's the fans who buy your fucking music, rather than the suits, who you wouldn't piss on if they're on fire in most cases, because they work against you. They're the enemy. So there we are. There's a bunch of where the hell were you topics. We've still got some more, so we'll do another episode to catch up on the other ones when more of those appear. But that's it for this week. I got stuff to go and do. I want to thank everyone in the chat this week. A ton of participation. Awesome stuff. Thank you very much. You make it really fun for us while we're doing this show. If you're catching up with this episode after, think about joining us live if you're available to. It's really fun to do these episodes live. All right, that's it this week. We'll be back next week with who knows what Gene's going to say next week. But if he says something silly, we'll be here to talk about it. And if not, we'll be talking about something else, because Kiss is not over. Kiss is eternal. All right. From Mark, from Daniel, Ken, and myself, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the message board and discuss the topics we've broadcast today. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you've listened to this show, and a like would very much be appreciated. We hope you'll join us again, but until then, remember, life's a radio. Turn it up to 10.